Hello, today's lecture will be about feature photos. How feature photos differ from a news photo or an event photo, is that there's not a real time element to feature stories. They're not urgent. They don't have to be run this week or they become irrelevant. You can run them next week, the week after. They have a timeless type of feel to them and a much longer shelf life than events do or breaking news. A house fire that happened 2 months ago is no longer newsworthy. A basketball game that happened 2 months ago, also not worthy. A downtown celebration for the mayor, that was 2 months ago, once again not newsworthy. But there are certain things, like say a profile on a celebrity, that is always going to be interesting. The person may become irrelevant over time, but there will be someone out there that is interested in that celebrity and would still want to see photos or hear a story about this person or see a story about this person. So basically the places that you get a feature from are from people, places, programs, and problems. It's kind of nice that they all start with the letter P, but let's start with people. A people feature is telling you about someone who is interesting. They don't necessarily have to be a celebrity, a public figure. Most people are interesting and have a story to tell. Take pictures of those people. Tell the story of their life through the photos. And most people, since we are a social animal, will find this type of story interesting. And it'll have that long shelf life that I just mentioned. It doesn't have to be run this week because that person will stop being interesting next week. Places are just places in our community, still proximity needed there, that are just interesting. Since we are in the greater Louisville area here, Churchill Downs is an interesting place. Some of the museums around are interesting places. In southern Indiana, Starlight, Indiana, and the Huber Farm and the Huber Winery, two different places, are just interesting places. There's a feature story there. Take pictures of those places and let those pictures tell that story. Programs is a little headier. This is programs that institutions have established to somehow benefit the community, such as a soup kitchen or an after-school learning center. Still a places with people, but it's also a program that has been set up that will benefit those around them. And it might be newsworthy when they first open up, but after a few years they're still newsworthy because it's an interesting program, it's an interesting place, it's an interesting bunch of people. All those things make for an interesting photo story. And of course, there are problems that our communities face that also make for good photos. If we seem to have some illegal dumping going on in the area, and it's not a breaking news story, it's something that has been going on for a while in a community. For some reason, people keep dumping all their stuff in this one ditch. Well, there's a problem that needs to be pointed out through photos and photojournalism. And, it's better if you ran it today than tomorrow, but it'll have a shelf life because it's an ongoing problem. Homelessness, there's an ongoing problem that makes for interesting photojournalism and also helps shine light to help those people who may find themselves homeless. So those are the 4 areas that you can usually find a good feature photo story in. As mentioned, the characteristics of feature stories are they're timeless. They tend to be a little slice of life, something that goes on a regular basis, an everyday type of event. Some features are news features. They are somehow tied into something that has the standard news characteristics of timeliness, proximity, conflict, notoriety, etc., etc. And you can sometimes tie in a breaking news story to a feature. For example, let's say there was a robbery downtown of a liquor store, and this is the 5th liquor store that has been hit in the past 3 months. Well, this is an ongoing problem. That makes it a feature story. And if you can take a picture of, what happened at this most recent event, the other places, the other people involved, the people who are trying to solve the crime, you can tie in this news feature to this breaking news story. Events, just finished the Super Bowl. Well, try to find someone who has a tie to the Super Bowl, a player, a person, a family member, someone in the community who has been to all 50-something Super Bowls. So something like that it may have a little less shelf life than most feature stories, but still isn't something that is so important to be told today that it can't be told next week. And one thing to look for when you are shooting a feature story is there's going to be some emotions behind it. When you have a feature story about a person, they of course are emotional people, and you want to get behind those feelings, show those feelings through your photos. A problem like homelessness, there's a lot of emotions involved with that. So anything that you can pull on those heartstrings usually lends itself to a good feature story. Some tips. There are a lot of cliched feature stories out there. One that comes along on a school campus all the time, it doesn't matter which school campus it is a profile of the person who changes the sign out front. It's not really that interesting. Or a profile of the head of the campus. And in the case of IU Southeast, that would be the chancellor. If it's been done recently, you don't need to do that feature story again. If it's been a few years, and definitely more than 4, you may want to consider it again. But try to come up with fresh ideas, things that you haven't heard of before, that you are interested in. When you are talking about people, places, and problems, you want those candid photos, not the posed photos. You want to see behind the scenes, the person's everyday life, what's really going on with this program, this problem in this place, rather than, everyone, let's only show the good parts, only show people staring at the camera looking their best. We want to see the unvarnished truth with feature stories. As far as public relations go, once again, they are good sources for feature stories. There's always somebody interesting that they know about that they would like to have featured in the media. So don't forget to check in with your contacts that you know in the community that happen to be in public relations that can help you out. There's that relationship between public relations and photojournalism and journalism that really can't be ignored, ever. All right. How do we find some features? Well, think of people, think of places, think of programs, think of problems. And you may just want to pick a location. Maybe a location you pass by every day. I had one student who went out and shot a photo story of this one place that she drove by every day, and every day she thought, I wonder, why it has that name. Why is it there? I pass this every day, but I know nothing about it. So one day she stopped, got out her camera, and she started shooting photos, and it was a really good story. And it was just a location, a quintessential photo assignment that a a lot of photography professors give is they'll just give you a location, say on campus or along the main street of their community, and say, from noon to 6 o'clock today, shoot whatever's at this location. Go in front of the clock on campus, and between noon and 3 o'clock, shoot what happens there. Yeah, usually makes for a good feature story. It gets a little cliched, and that's why I don't do it anymore. I have done it. But you can just pick a location at a certain time and say, okay, what happens here at that time? An idea book is kind of an old concept. An idea book is something that a wire service or a news agency, a press association would put out every day to say what is happening in the community. Kind of like an events calendar, but also would list interesting people who may be in the community, an interesting place. And it's always a good idea if you have access to one of these idea books to just check it each day and see, is there a feature photo opportunity in there? Check your calendar. There's usually a holiday event, a season, an annual sports event that can lend itself to a feature photo. I'm recording this on February 2nd, 2020. The Super Bowl was just played, and it's also Groundhog Day. Two things that lend themselves to feature photos, feature stories. Maybe cliched, but if you could put an interesting angle, shed new light on it, it would make for a good feature story. Vantage points. Think about your city. Is there a place that is higher, lower, prominent in your community that needs to have some photos taken of it, some explanation of why it's there, some candid perspective that you haven't seen before? Go there. Trends are usually hard to pick out unless you're really good at it. The only trend that I've really noticed lately is in design, and that is for really, really bright, bold colors. So you may want to go out and look at some recent designs that are in the community, say murals or art exhibits or poster designs, and take pictures of that and the people who made them, and ask them about this trend of bright colors, usually to the point of being gaudy. So I don't like that trend. And then of course there's always extremes. Think of the biggest ball of yarn. It's definitely a feature story. There's not like it was the biggest ball of yarn today, but it wasn't the next day. If it happens that way, well, then it's a news story rather than a feature story. But, why would someone create the biggest ball of yarn? What do people think about the biggest ball of yarn? What about the facility that houses the biggest ball of yarn? Take pictures of that and tell that story. So there's always extremes out there, the biggest, the best, the largest, the smallest, that lend themselves to feature photos. So for your feature assignment, find something that's a person, a place, a problem, or a program. Take some photos of it, turn in your 4 best with complete cut lines, and I look forward to seeing your feature photos.